to the challenge.
1 second so I can pull up the spreadsheet.
That way we'll be able to see your spreadsheet, but we'll also have little pictures of who's asking questions and so forth on the side.
Joyce, this is Sandy. FYI, the recording didn't start right away, but it is on now.
Okay, great.
Can you guys see this okay?
Yep.
So this is the list of how we spent that initial Green Communities grant. So as you can see, it totaled out to a little over 191,000. So the biggest project in terms of grant funds was the Senior Center High Efficiency Condenser. So most of these projects were aimed at improving energy efficiency, which I think you guys might know is kind of like the main purview of Green Communities.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just go down the list. There was a high efficiency boiler at the water department, almost 15 grand in grant funds for that. There was a mini EMS system at the water department, almost 4 grand for that. High efficiency rooftop unit at the water department for about 20 grand. There was a high efficiency AC at the Bayberry Hills Golf Course for a little over 31,000. There was the high efficiency condenser that I mentioned at the senior center for about 4,000. A mini split replacement at Town Hall, 4,500. EMS at Town Hall, 29 grand. Cooling tower and circulation pump at Town Hall for almost 9,000. There was a small project for garage door weatherizations at the police and recreation department. That one's down here for a few $100. There was the replacing the old non-functioning heat pump for heating and cooling at the police dispatch, 4 grand.
Oh, that is a challenge, that building.
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges with that building. And then there was some, I think these are electric vehicles. And the rest of the funds were used for administrative costs, I think to pay some of my salary and stuff like that. So that's how we spent the initial Green Communities grant. Before I go on, does anybody have any questions about any of this stuff?
I think we're all very interested in the electric vehicle piece of the town work, especially because we know that some of the town electric vehicle chargers are not yet connected because supplementary equipment is needed to be able to monitor them. I don't know if that's still the case, but that was the case the last time we heard about them.
I think that's still the case, that the charging stations aren't fully operational at the moment. But Amanda might know better than me on that.
And our update was from Amanda. So
oh, there you go.
Hey,
yeah,
Amanda.
I can add to that. Yeah, so I've been working with the contractor and we can get the initial activation done. And now it just is finding out the long-term monitoring, but those are at least operational. It's just figuring out the missing piece.
Oh, great. So let me just make sure I'm clear and that Marilyn will be clear for the minutes. All the town EV chargers are now working in all locations as far as the customer end, even though the town monitoring isn't working on all of them. Is that right?
Correct.
Oh,
and
great.
if anybody has any issues, please let me know because I don't use them. I don't have a vehicle, but if anything does pop up, like we had the ones at Town Hall had a warranty and they've resent replacements, I think maybe on the second time now, and there's one of them at Town Hall that's not working. But again, so like some things might fall under warranty items.
Oh, okay. So hopefully that won't cost the town then. Yeah.
No, it doesn't. No.
Okay.
And in terms of the specific vehicles, so the 2 ones that were noted was a hybrid engine police cruiser and a fully electric vehicle for the conservation department.
Oh, okay. Now, is that hybrid police cruiser being driven about town? Could we spot that if we were out and about?
Oh yeah, I have a picture of it. It doesn't really look any different than a normal police cruiser. It's an SUV, looks like.
Okay.
But Yeah.
And is it a hybrid, a plain hybrid, or is it a hybrid electric that could be charged?
Call them tomorrow morning.
This says hybrid engine police cruiser. I can figure out, I'll get you an answer to that though.
Oh, okay, thanks. Okay, well, that sounds good. And the
Yep.
recreation vehicle must be delightful. The people in recreation are so interested in, after all, saving this planet and recreation areas, that they must be delighted to be the department picked to do that, to
Yeah,
have the electric
yeah,
vehicle.
conservation. Yeah, it's a Nissan Leaf. That's the.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, that's how we that was, involved in our work with wrapping up the initial Green Communities grant. So we also needed to submit a final report in order to kind of close out our initial grant, which made us eligible to apply for the next round of Green Communities funding. We also needed to submit an annual report, so 2 different kind of finalish type reports, which we've got in by the deadline. So that's
Excellent.
so we're now eligible to apply for the competitive round funding of Green Communities. So that's going to be due in April. So we're
Okay.
in the process right now of talking to different town departments to see what kind of projects are out there for us to consider. So the ones that we're thinking about are solar installation for the new police training facility, a battery storage project that's like connected to the new solar going in at fire station number 3, an anaerobic digester at 50 Workshop Road, which we already know has been approved as a Green Communities. It's eligible. It's an eligible project. New hybrid vehicles for both the building department and the police department. So those.
Question, Kyle.
Yep.
This biogenerator, I thought it was going to be originally a something that was contracted for somebody to come in and do it. That was the impression I had. Is it still that way? But we're going to supply the actual machine and we'll have an operator on contract?
For the anaerobic digester, that's what you're talking about?
Yes.
That sounds right, but that's another thing where I'll have to double check. I'll check with Ed Centio, the finance director, who's kind of the quarterback for the whole project, and get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we're so glad that you're mentioning administrative overhead and that you're thinking through things like staffing the anaerobic digester, because our worst nightmare would be to get these grant funds for all these lovely projects, but have town staff not getting paid for a whole pile of additional work. So I'm glad that's being factored in.
Yeah.
I think if it is, also, it will be much easier to get a contractor in who doesn't have to buy or own the equipment himself.
Right.
That we have the machine and you come and make it work.
Yeah, definitely.
Are you going to give us a link so that we can include it in the minutes? So if somebody wants to see the spreadsheet, they can?
Sure. Yep. I'll send the spreadsheet. You want me to send it to you, Joyce, or how should I get it to you guys?
You can send it to me and I'll get it to Marilyn. But Marilyn, would you like to get it directly?
Oh, it doesn't matter, as long as I can just include the links for everybody to see.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Just send it to me, Cal, and I'll get it sent right off to Marilyn.
Sounds good. I think I have Marilyn's email actually from the
Okay.
YouTube clip. So
mmhcape@Comcast.
Yep.
And
Mike.
Mike Duffy's here
Coming
from
in.
Hawaii.
Mike, hello.
Aloha.
Well, you're looking very relaxed.
Well, it is relaxing out here, except when we have earthquakes and tsunami warnings, which we have.
Oh,
We have had since I've been here.
but those pale next to northeasters, don't they?
Yes, I think so.
You've missed quite a weather month.
I know, but I was on line Saturday checking on my house all day long. as much as I could check anyway, which is just a couple of thermostats.
Oh, okay. If you want, on Thursday, I can do a drive by your house if there's any particular external thing you want me to take a look at.
Nothing in particular, but if you're in the neighborhood, I appreciate any
Okay.
advice that will say it's still standing and there's nothing wrong with it.
Well, you're going to insist on it still being vertical. Now that's,
Yeah.
that's pushing it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Figure I'll do that Thursday and send it off to you. And of course, with the time difference, I'll be sending it off to you when it's daytime where you are. So
Yes,
then you can see.
it's 11:48 right now here.
Ah. Okay. Mike, did you
Just,
have any? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just going to share one more thing, which is just the key dates for the green communities for this upcoming year. So we're expecting the project opportunity or program opportunity notice to be posted any day now, which is going to give us some updated guidance for this competitive grant round that we're about to go into.
Okay. And Kyle, can I ask you, is this, given that it's a competitive grant, is one of the considerations whether they're going to be matching funds from the town or matching funds from any other source to match the Green Communities Fund? Does that affect the likelihood of getting a new grant?
Yeah, that's a good question. I will need to look into that because I forget off the top of my head. I believe it's the case where a match isn't required, but it'll put you in a more favorable light if you can.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's usually how it is for a lot of these, but let's give me another one to double check on. I should have given the disclaimer in the beginning that a lot of the questions I'll probably won't have a answer off the top of my head to, because I'm still learning a lot of this stuff, but I'll certainly, any questions that you have, if I don't know off the top of my head, I'll definitely get you an answer.
Well, and we appreciate the independence of this rather than having Rich on speed dial out in Eastham. Good for you for just marching in there and taking it over.
Yeah. Yeah, if anybody has any other questions, I'd be happy to answer any.
No, I think, we would just, ask if there's anything that we as Energy Committee can do to help.
Yeah, I think once we finally figure out what we'd like to have on the application, I haven't run this by Bob Rittenauer yet, but I'd like to come before you guys to kind of go over what we're thinking about applying for, and perhaps get a kind of letter of support that says, you agree that this would be kind of help to achieve the energy goals for the town, if you guys do agree with that. So maybe something like that in the future.
Okay, that would be great. And let me just admit that I have a preference for solar on the new training for canine building. I think that might have a certain appeal to dog lovers who are weighing the application. So I think that might be a good one to include if it works for the town overall.
Noted. Sounds good.
Okay. Well, any other questions for Kyle? No? Okay. And we'll all, with the link, have this permanently on the EC site so we can visit it as we wonder about this thing or that thing. But Kyle, we really appreciate your bringing us up to date. And Amanda, we appreciate you for getting Kyle here, because it's nice to be in the loop and figure out where we're going and what we might be able to do to help, because we would like to help.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I'll send off that spreadsheet and then also a copy of our final report so you guys.
Oh, thank you. Okay, well, thank you very much, Kyle. Have a good evening if you have this one off from your several jobs.
Yes, thank you very much.
Good night.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Delighted to. Okay, so that was the Green Communities report. We already had my little non-report on the Cape Light Compact update. And that was really that the next board meeting is coming very soon, a week from tomorrow, and that we'll be able in February to be announcing the official release of the new rebates for the heat pumps, and that'll be of help for our March 1st meeting. Okay, can I see if Ranit and Andy are here yet?
Hey folks, it's Andy Belden with Eversource. I haven't seen Ronit yet. She may be waiting until 5, but I'm happy to move forward with the agenda if that's okay with you all.
Oh, or if you want to wait for Ronit, that's fine. It's just amazing how ahead of time we seem to be running. It's not our usual pattern, Andy, I'm afraid to say.
I mean, if you guys can slot something in the next 7 minutes, I mean, I wouldn't want to keep you guys waiting until she shows up at 5. So I don't know if there are any other agenda items you wanted to talk through.
Okay. Maybe then we would take 5 minutes on an update on Solarize Yarmouth plus installation metrics. We're now up to 49 contracts for the solar, and we're running into large installation delays, which will not be improved by the fact that we all have snow on our roofs down here. But the volunteer team is working on that, and we have a clean energy center meeting with the vendors tomorrow at 10. The other thing that we're doing is we are really pushing the heat pumps, because for our next meeting, we're going to have a meet the installer meeting within our energy committee meeting. And we're going to have Wayne Enos and some of the background technology insights and lovely photos on heat pumps. But then we're also going to have somebody from the compact addressing the latest rebates and how much they have improved since last year, and how this is a good opportunity for people who want to get heat pumps. We could go with a theme around Valentine's Day and after, you know, keeping people warm. And then of course, by April, we'll flip to keeping people cool. But, you know, they've only got till March 31st to get themselves in the queue for the discounted price. So I really want to emphasize that. And any other thoughts on Solarize? Coach, out on an island? Any thoughts?
You're in charge, Joyce, not me.
Only for 27 or so more days. Boy, am I having fun spending that budget. Okay, well, that's really, do any of you have questions about Solarize? Nope.
What is this?
Okay.
Joyce, what's the
Yep.
status of the roofs there? Is the snow melting off the roofs now?
It went up into the low 30s today. And so you can see stalactites dripping, but not dripping fast enough to get roofs clear.
Oh.
It probably it'll be the weekend before roofs are clear, and then we get rain and sleet.
Has Solar Wolf recovered from all their COVID problems?
We're not sure. One of the people who was at the last meeting with CEC was Ted, and Ted looked like a ghost. Apparently he had pneumonia, he was in the hospital, he looked like he had lost a lot of weight, and he and his wife and their 4 kids all had COVID, but apparently he was sick enough to be hospitalized for a while. So I would guess that it might take him, you know, a little bit longer to get back up to full speed. He might not be able to talk quite as fast as usual for a while. Okay, if any of you have anybody who might be interested in heat pumps, especially if you know someone who's been saying they wish they had air conditioning, do mention to them our March 1st Energy Committee meeting, because that'll be a good chance for them to find out more about that. And I'm sure Eversource is delighted with this strategic electrification, Andy. Heat pumps going up all over Yarmouth.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. We actually just got the order from the DPU last night, and it's a kind of a definite sea change in both how our efficiency programs are run, but obviously that they're run by the Cape Light Compact down there. But also some interesting things about our ongoing revenue and how we're motivated to increase people using more electricity for the purposes of their EVs and their heat pumps. So it's going to be a very different world. We're still trying to metabolize what it all means, but yeah, it's all exciting stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to jump into to my agenda item if you guys feel like that's
Okay,
good.
it's 2 minutes of 5. So why don't we do that, Andy? Especially as everybody is picturing Eversource going for energy efficiency and at the same time getting lots more business because of the strategic electrification. It's a hoot.
Yeah, there was a surprise. Well, it's maybe more inside baseball than you care to know, but there was a bit of a surprise in the order. Previously, we had been operating on under something called decoupling, in which our revenue doesn't make a difference how much electricity people buy, and the DPU in their efficiency order said that they were going to be sunsetting decoupling to create a motivation for us to increase the number of people, the amount of electricity people are using. So very, very different world.
Yes.
So one of the first and foremost, introduce myself. I'm Andy Belden. I'm Vice President of Solar Programs at Eversource. So that means our team runs the SMART program that you might be familiar with. And we run similar programs in Connecticut. So all the incentive work that gets done in coordination with the state. I see Mary Elzon, who's a previous colleague. We worked together running the SMART program when she was in state government. And then also my role is implementing a new section in the general laws of Massachusetts that allows Eversource to own more solar when it's coupled with energy storage. And previous to my job at Eversource, I was actually at Mass CEC for 4 years, supporting the team that ran the Solarize program. So very excited to hear that it's still going strong and that you guys are seeing some good results. So
it is we are their last project, alas, but
yeah, I had heard that the program was sunsetting. No pun intended. And I was sad to see, because I know it's done a lot of good and built a lot of projects, and it's been a great way to connect communities with solar. But with me today is Ronit Goldstein. I don't know, Ronit, you want to say a quick hello and who you are?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. Nice to meet you, Joyce, virtually, and the committee as well. My name is Ronit Goldstein. I'm with Eversource Energy Community Relations. And
we're delighted to have you, Ronit. And your reputation precedes you, because you have been so wonderful with the regional shelter. Sandy Cashin says very good things about you.
Yeah, so Sandy and I were texting because there was an issue with one of the schools. I think it was the Mattakey school. So it's on, we fix it. It's not on, we go back. So it's been since we spoke last week, Joyce, it's been a thoroughly exhausting few days for me, I have to share. So needless to say, I'm happy to be home again for a little while, at least today, work from home and catch up on some much needed sleep.
And Eversource did a great job with those power outages down here, getting them fixed very fast.
Yeah, I can't take all the credit. It definitely takes a village, but it was another whopper. I know that's not a very professional terminology, but in my world today, with still catching up on sleep and needing coffee, I'll call it a whopper. But it was definitely a different storm than October. But you guys have had two back-to-back really recent tough storms in the area, and this past one was just deplorable conditions outside, quite honestly. So it was made it tough for everyone, and then the restoration was really delayed because of those conditions. So we're so appreciative to the communities for understanding that and for folks having patience. So I cover storms by day and by blue sky outages and by storm, but I also support community initiatives and work with elected officials and committees within all of the communities on the Cape and on Martha's Vineyard. So I'm here really to support Andy in this initiative and get the Energy Committee involved and in any other, quite honestly, energy related topics that we can, cover today or come back to speak with you. I think you're an important stakeholder to keep apprised of what we have going on. So thanks for the opportunity to be here, and I'm gonna kick it back to Andy. And thanks for the accolades. Wow, I did not expect that, Joyce. I didn't know you were involved in the MAC. So thanks for that.
Oh, I'm not, but I take Sandy's opinion very seriously.
And I am very serious about that. She not only helped me with one school, she helped me with two without realizing it. But we still had burst pipes today. Oh, well.
Oh, no, I didn't realize you were here, Sandy. What other school did you have an issue with? I can't even remember now.
Wixon.
Wixon. Oh, that's right. That's right. It all becomes like one big blur post-storm. So
Still
happy to help.
Bob Palmieri here. Yes, in October, we were without electricity for 4 days. And this time all we had was those blinkings that wreak havoc with your internet. And so telling me that the grid worked the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah, that's great. That blinking is our automated recovery system kind of kicking on and switching feeders and things like that. So we've done a lot of investment in that kind of technology recently. So it's you guys are well, people always wonder what's going on. Like that's the system doing what it's supposed to do. So great. I do have a couple of slides. So I'm going to try to share my screen if that works for folks.
Sure.
So folks seeing what I see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect.
Lovely
All right.
colors.
Yes. Yeah, I do like this slide deck theme. So just a couple of quick framing slides. So Eversource, our electric company, is really a poles and wires company. We used to own generation. About 25 years ago, legislation was passed and we got out of the business of owning generation. But we currently own 22 solar installations totaling 70 megawatts across our Massachusetts territories. Those projects were developed under specific legislation that allows us to continue to own generation assets when they were in support of the state's climate goals. And there was a limit to that legislation that we were capped at 70 megawatts. Those projects generate local property taxes and climate benefits, just as all other solar projects do. So we do have a pretty successful track record of working in our communities to develop and appropriately site solar PV systems. I don't think we have a substantial number of projects on the Cape. We do have a lot in kind of Western Mass, and I think that's one of those large ground-mounted projects in Western Mass. So recently, although I guess it's not as recently anymore, there was a new climate bill that was passed by the legislature in Massachusetts. Every couple of years, we have major climate legislation, which is to be expected in a Commonwealth with as aggressive climate goals as Massachusetts has. Couple of hits and highlights from that legislation. One, it makes the state's target of reaching net zero carbon emissions by 2050. It went from a goal to being kind of a binding law. And it also established a series of interim steps and goals for 2030 and 2040 in terms of carbon emissions. Importantly, and kind of what we're here to talk about, it also expanded the opportunity for electric and gas companies to own solar generation, specifically when it's paired with energy storage. Unique wrinkle, it allows gas companies for the first time to own solar, but that's less relevant to Yarmouth and Eversource. Other pieces that were kind of new and kind of path breaking, there's an increase of an additional 2.4 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2027. So Massachusetts is absolutely all in with respect to offshore wind. There's a new solar low-income trust program that's being established through the legislation, and there's some changes to the way property taxes are calculated for solar and solar storage projects to try to kind of clarify and regularize some of the property tax issues in the state. So again, it's a huge bill. There's maybe 150 sections. I'm not exactly sure, but what we're here to talk about is specifically Section 77,
Mhm.
which is related to utility-owned solar. So this new legislation has a kind of a different approach to utility-owned solar. The previous program that we ran, we were told that we could build up to 70 megawatts, and as long as it met the kind of the climate goals of the Commonwealth, we were, that was as much as the legislation said. This new legislation really comes at it from a different angle and really wants us as a utility to building solar projects that support community resiliency. And so a couple of parts and pieces, first and foremost, when we bring projects to our regulator, to the Department of Public Utilities, we need to be doing that with our communities. So really partnering with our communities to design and develop these projects. Other important aspects of this legislation, we need to be developing projects that are on land that we own. We also need to have goals specific to things like job creation, system resiliency, and peak demand reduction. The legislation also has a kind of an important directive to us to be looking to develop projects that support environmental justice communities. So in Massachusetts, there's a specific designation for what counts as an environmental justice community, and it depends on the proportion of minority residents or the proportion of English or language isolated residents, or the proportion of low income customers in those neighborhoods. So really an effort to make sure that the growth in solar that we've seen in Massachusetts doesn't pass by those communities and those neighborhoods. We're also required in this legislation to pair those solar projects with storage wherever feasible, in support of kind of system resiliency and demand reduction goals. We need to be building these projects in communities that are at high risk for climate change, which obviously Yarmouth is a community that has and we'll be expecting a lot to be changing with given the expected effects of climate change. As I mentioned, we're developing. The directive is to develop these projects in partnership with local governments. We need to be developing these projects at no cost to the local governments. So that's a clear directive. And then also when we go to our regulator, we need to be able to really point to concrete environmental benefits, and also the costs need to be reasonable. So it's a pretty extensive section within the new legislation, and I think I've given kind of a quick rundown. But I don't know, before I get to the specifics of the projects that we'd like to talk about today, I'm just interested in if folks have any questions about anything that I've covered with respect to the legislation.
Well, I think we'd be interested in getting an informal sense of the prioritizing of the different directions and goals that the state seems to be presenting you with.
Yes, so it is threading a couple of needles to get a project that kind of makes sense. I mean, obviously there are really hard and fast lines, like it has to be built on a property that we own. So that limits what we can do. Although there are, we have been talking with our attorneys, there may be opportunities for us to do projects on land we lease. So that may open up further opportunities. The system resilience is a must-have. The job creation goals are a must-have. The partnering with the local government is a must-have. The environmental justice is kind of a directive that we should look to environmental justice communities first, but that's not a requirement. That said, we do think that we've come up with a kind of structure for these projects that will be able to provide benefits to environmental justice communities, even when they're not cited in those communities. And I think it's an interesting directive because one of the things that is sometimes an area of concern is the setting of infrastructure in environmental justice communities. So we don't interpret the language in the legislation to say that we should be building necessarily these projects in environmental justice communities, but they should provide some benefit to those communities. So it's at least that's how we're interpreting it, and we have as I said, a plan to go to the DPU that I can talk about a little bit in the next couple of slides.
Andy,
Excuse me.
oh, go ahead, Bob.
How many environmental justice communities are there on the Cape?
So you'd be surprised. The site that we're proposing, so the Yarmouth Area Work Center, actually is in an environmental justice neighborhood. So it's actually at the census tract level. So if you have particular census tracts which are typically much smaller than your average town, that meet the criteria that the state has, then your city or town is an environmental justice community. So there's I think we ran the numbers and we serve, Renee's going to correct me on this, but we serve maybe 160 or 70 or 80 communities statewide. And I think 118 of those communities have environmental justice populations. So it's more prevalent than you would think. And just as a kind of a reference, there's certainly environmental justice neighborhoods in like say Oak Bluffs on the Vineyard.
So
Bob, there are quite a few on the Cape, to answer your question. There are
Yeah.
quite a few. Out of the 15 communities, it's not all 15, but there was quite a few, we'll say. And then on the island as well, there was about, I think, 4 out of 6 towns on the island. But I could track the number if you needed that
No,
exact
no,
number,
no,
but there's
that's-
quite a few.
yeah, I've been just after hearing your watching your presentation to the select board last week. It was the first I had heard about this whole thing, and some of it didn't make any sense to me. And now your presentation is beginning to, and I read the legislation as well. So Yarmouth has just lucked out by having your big installation over there on Willow Street.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think that's what we've done initially is just take a look at the properties that we own and where solar is going to make the most sense, and where there's a legitimate kind of resilience need, and where there's environmental justice community. So yeah, we are doing that kind of triangulation based on the parameters in the legislation, and that's why we're approaching Yarmouth, because you guys were kind of at the top of the list when we started doing that review of our properties.
Mhm.
Is this
Andy-
storage facility, which will be a part of it, be greater than the production capabilities of the solar installation that you're going to do?
Yeah, so if folks don't have any further questions on the legislation, we can happy to jump to the site itself and the projects that's being proposed. So yeah, at this point, Bob kind of clearly has seen my presentation last week, but we are proposing a solar canopy project at our area work center. And that area work center is not just an area work center, but it's also the base of operations for our emergency operations. So our emergency operations center on the Cape when we are responding to major outages.
Mhm.
So at the moment, the preliminary design is a 2.1 megawatt solar canopy project, which is pretty substantial. Again, as a solar canopy, it will just be over the existing parking lots at the site. So it's a good use of kind of otherwise underused land to support renewable energy. And we're currently thinking of a 200 kW, 800 kilowatt hour battery, so a battery that would be able to operate for 4 hours autonomously. And so this is obviously a critical facility for our operations, given what we do there. And the goal of this project is, from a resilience standpoint, to allow us to extend the amount of time that we can island. So in the event that the grid does go down, we currently have diesel generators at that site that operate and make sure that we have power and are able to continue to operate our emergency operations center. But what we want to do is provide an additional redundancy and also reduce the use of those diesel generators. And then further kind of protect against, fingers crossed that this never happens, but the ability to get diesel in say a major hurricane, given blocked roads and things of that nature, it is a risk. So we feel like this allows us to both island more cleanly, but then also extends the autonomous operations of this facility if it's able to run off solar and storage in addition to the diesel generators on site. So that's kind of the thesis for the project. And we think it kind of touches on a lot of the themes that are in the legislation.
Andy, I had a question about participants. Is the community solar installation intended to be restricted to low income customers, R2 rate customers?
So I guess that's the kind of, when you think about a PV system at a site that we own, that's an area work center, you kind of ask the question, well, what's the environmental justice benefit for that? I mean, obviously there's a benefit for everybody if we're able to, ensure we're able to operate in an emergency situation. But what we're proposing for this project is to take it to the DPU to treat this as a community shared solar project. So the idea would be that this project would sell electricity to the grid and would sell renewable energy certificates. We would take the revenue from that, and then we would disperse it as bill credits to customers, potentially low-income customers, potentially other customers. And I think, from our perspective, what we would want is, we don't want to be saying, we don't want to be walking into the town and saying, well, we know better than Yarmouth. These are the customers that should be provided these bill credits. What we really want is kind of a community engagement process after we get the go-ahead from the DPU that this is a good idea. And the idea would be, and what we've done in the past is send out surveys to maybe all customers in Yarmouth, or maybe all low-income customers in Yarmouth, to get their perspectives on what's the right way to prioritize who benefits. Because what we're projecting for this project is that's going to generate about $150,000 worth of revenue. And obviously we can't, we could provide that back to every single customer in Yarmouth, but it's going to not really amount to much and make a difference in folks' lives. So the idea would be to set a target for the amount of bill credit that we want to provide, and then figure out how to prioritize customers. So what we've done in other places is we've prioritized low-income customers that have had substantial arrearages. Because those are folks who have identified needs. We could do geographic targeting. We could do, potentially something like, providing it to offset the bills for public EV charging stations in environmental justice communities. So there's a lot of things that we could do with those bill credits. But the idea would be we'd want to have a dialogue with the town. Once we get kind of affirmation from the DPU that this is allowed. So what we don't want to do is get people excited about this, to propose it to the DPU and have them come back and say, yeah, you're not allowed to do community shared solar with these types of projects, because it's not necessarily contemplated in the legislation, but we think it's an idea that we want to propose.
I think it's going to be very interesting, because it seems like the DPU does not necessarily head in exactly the direction of this legislation, to put it mildly. There should be some interesting fights.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what we get when we put this in. But yeah, I mean, they're in a position where they have a mandate that they need to be watching watching out for customers in terms of their bills. And obviously, we're going to install this project, and we're going to earn a rate of recovery on it. So yeah, they'll this project will be the first one that goes in. presuming that you guys are in support of it, and we can kind of get to the point where we're going to the DPU together. But yeah, we're interested to see how it goes. Let's put it that way.
About participation, I understand that comes after the DPU approval and that, but does Eversource picture this as a town community project or as a regional community project? I'm just thinking in terms of how widely bill credits, if you decided on bill credits, might be extended geographically.
Yeah, so we have been thinking about this as town specific and not regional, because Yarmouth does have environmental justice communities, and I think the need in those communities is sufficient to soak up any bill credits that are generated. So we had been thinking about this as a specific town project.
Do you know how many R2 customers Eversource has in Yarmouth?
I do not, and that's a good question that I should probably go back and find out. So yeah, let me take that back and get a better sense.
And if it was to be dispersed as bill credits, does that go only to Eversource customers, or does it go to Cape Light Compact customers in Yarmouth as well?
Well, so those are kind of one and the same. So anyone who gets an Eversource electric bill, so that would be the Cape Light Compact customers as well. So yeah, this is separate and distinct from the efficiency programs.
Andy, just a couple of questions. The $150,000 revenue, that's annual, I'm guessing?
Annual, yeah, and that's based on our best guess. The energy is going to get sold into the wholesale market, which is fairly volatile. So it will fluctuate year to year.
Okay, that was going to be my other question. Was this is not at all related to 2145 and that low income community shared solar program that you guys are proposing? This would be.
No, this is totally distinct, and the bill credits are not net metering credits. They're not QF credits. They're just kind of a new thing of our own. Let's put it that way.
Okay, yeah. So you're thinking like a cash payment on a bill to just customers in the town of Yarmouth.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Thanks.
Would there
just-
be
go ahead.
anything that might help landlords change their heating systems over to air source heat pump systems so that the bills, the electricity bills, I mean the total energy bills of tenants would be decreased?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting idea, and I think given the clear direction with respect to electrification, I think that's definitely on the table if we want to be thinking about whether to support low-income customers who are installing heat pumps or landlords of affordable housing that are installing heat pumps. I think the cost calculus for heat pumps is kind of challenging for low-income customers, and this might be a nice thing to pair with customers who are doing heat pumps.
Yeah, something could be done with HAC, for instance.
Oh,
So is it
housing
not-
assistance.
As the non-low income resident, will a certain portion of my electric bill contribute to this $150,000 a year revenue that you're expecting?
Yeah.
How's that?
So this will become part of the kind of the base capital that Eversource owns, and so in order to kind of fund that base capital, all customers will see a very small incremental increase in their bills.
And what do I get? What do I get as a benefit?
So it's the environmental benefits. It's also the resilience benefits that we will see at the site.
The resilient benefit being that if my power goes out, then you can turn on your storage batteries there and send me some electricity before they get something fixed?
Well, not for this site. So although we are thinking about microgrids, but it allows us to extend our operations at the site, and so provides from an operational standpoint, it improves our efficiency and our ability to respond to outages.
Okay.
So,
Do you have any sense, Andy, of what the adder would be per kilowatt?
As in terms of kind of the overall kind of increased customer costs?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have that, but this is probably a $7 or $8 million project on a rate base that's around, I want to say 20 billion. So it's a project of this scale is pretty de minimis on that front, and we do need to run our bill impacts in advance of going to the DPU. So
Okay.
This
And
would
then
be recovered from all of your ratepayers, correct? Not just the ones in Yarmouth?
correct, yes. So this
Yeah.
would be added to our rate base, which is recovered by all electric customers in Massachusetts.
Okay, and I just want to be sure that I understand this. The customers that this would serve don't have to be on basic service. They could be on the compact power supply?
Yeah. So that's
Okay,
kind of on the supply side of the bill, and when we provide bill
sure.
credit to someone, that just comes off the bottom line of their entire bill. So it doesn't matter if they're you know, what
Okay.
their supply is. So just like net metering credits currently work.
Oh, okay. That's helpful. You won't be doing up anything like a contract, obviously, till after the DPU proceeding, but we would be very interested in having you back and seeing the contract once it is developed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, as I said, you know, we anticipate doing a fair amount of community outreach. And I think, you know, I don't want to impose myself on you guys, but I think it would be great to have your engagement as we think through kind of the menu of types of customers that we could support. And as we develop a survey to customers, it would be great to have your thoughts and input on, you know, on that menu and give us some validation of what we're thinking in terms of what goes into that survey.
Well, and we would like to be helpful, because one of the things that we discovered as Mike Duffy, our Solarize captain, was researching the preparation to apply for the Solarize grant, was not just that we had environmental justice communities, but that we had a fairly complicated mix. And I guess since we got, what was it, like $1,000 extra on the Solarize grant because we had environmental justice communities, I would love to see us be of direct help to those communities if there were any way that Energy Committee could help.
Great. So I guess any other questions on kind of the specifics of the project? So we as some of you guys heard, we did go to the Board of Selectmen. They gave me some homework. So we need to sketch out kind of precisely what the permitting pathway is for this project, given the town's specific permitting requirements. And then they also requested some additional views of the project. So we are, right now, this is kind of a concrete jungle. You guys are probably more familiar with it than I am. It's chain link fence and barbed wire. So we are proposing to put some plantings around the canopies. Just I think would significantly improve the site. But they wanted more specifics on that. So we'll be doing that homework. And our goal really is to try to move relatively quickly. And so we're hoping to get a letter of support from the town. You know, maybe even in the next couple of weeks would be ideal.
Okay.
Having watched the problems that CVEC has had on solar installations that are close to roads and visible, do you think, are you worried that there, although this is not in a residential neighborhood, that there might be some resistance to putting this huge thing in this place?
I mean, I think it's, you know, we are intending to do some site beautification, as I mentioned. I think these are maybe a little I drive by one of these at our Westwood office every day, and they're actually, I think they're somewhat beautiful. Folks might not everyone agrees, but
Well,
yeah,
we're all biased. And
fair,
that's,
absolutely fair. I mean, it is in a pretty industrial area, as I mentioned. The site is not exactly a looker as it currently stands. We have had discussions with the FAA, who's, obviously the airport's across the street, and have kind of alleviated any concerns that they might have about things like glare. But I mean, I think we're committed to doing what we can to make sure that this is an improvement to the site and not something that people are going to react negatively to.
And usually with us, I mean, with the new middle school being built on Station Ave, there was an incredible uproar with individuals on Nextdoor, the community network, about why are all those trees coming down? Well, you voted to have a new school there. People are very sensitive to loss of trees. So one real selling point for this might be trees are going to be added to the site
Right.
around the chain link fence.
Fair.
what is all that stuff at the rear of the site that doesn't look like it's buildings?
Over here, Renee, who works out of this site.
Inventory.
Yeah.
Inventory. It's all of our transformers and huge spools of, looks like a massive spool of thread, but it's spools of cable. I mean, it's all of our equipment.
Wouldn't they benefit from the protection of canopies?
No, the canopies are going to be in the front though, over the parking lot. So I don't think it'll be over. They possibly could. That's true.
Cover the whole site.
Maybe in the future, Andy.
I'm trying to remember. We did have that conversation with our facilities folks. I think there's some training activities we do there as well.
Oh, that's right. There's poles there actually. They do.
Yeah.
They train the linemen. There's poles, and there's actually an osprey nest back there. That like a platform with an osprey right in the back of our area work center. I will echo what Andy said, that I think, someone that goes to Yarmouth on not a daily basis these days, but on a regular basis, I actually think solar, I think it will make the area look more modern, kind of look more like it's got a good use to it, other than just these sort of cement old utility buildings, quite honestly. If I'm right,
I used to do that 180 days a year. I live in Yarmouthport and had kids in school in Hyannis, so I went by that site 4 times a day during school days. So I'm very familiar with it, and my reaction when you were making the presentation before I knew more about the legislation and things was that this whole thing that you were presenting it to the board was a sham in order to protect yourself from community pushback on the panels being next to the road.
Bob is from New York, in case you couldn't tell.
I will say, just with the reference to the diesel generators, I was at the area work center the entire weekend, and we had to run almost, I can't say entirely on generator, but for stability, they kept on because of especially on Saturday into Sunday, there was, the winds were so significant that any disruption was significantly, there was very disruptive to our SCADA. All of our automation was run out of that facility. And so they went on generator just for stability, quite honestly. So I think if there can be a boost that's clean, could be a good thing.
No, I mean, we had 4 people in my house that went crazy over the weekend because of the 5-second outages.
So will a battery on the scale that you're contemplating here, so I have solar panels and a battery, and for me, whenever the power fluctuated, the battery just kicked in for however many minutes, so there was never any interruption in current, but it was only drained to the extent of the minutes that those flash outages happened. So does the Large
So-
scale battery work the same way?
Yeah, large scale battery generally works the same way. Obviously, it's going to be different during different times of year in terms of how much resilience benefit we get. If the situation is a a major summertime outage, that battery is going to be charged every day with the solar. If it's something like this where we have a blizzard and the panels are covered, we're only going to get so much out of the battery. But yeah, the intent is to kind of extend significantly, and we're still doing the calculations on precisely what that's going to get us. But the intent is to be able to island the facility up to a 5-day standard with the kind of existing diesel generator plus the solar on site.
Andy, do you have any sense? Obviously, this is way out ahead of the skis, but do you have any sense what kind of canopy, what manufacturer you'd be leaning toward?
So we've kind of scoped out and gotten some initial pricing, but ultimately, we're going to have a competitive bid process where a developer is going to come to us and tell us what they're proposing. So yeah, it's a little premature to have a kind of a vendor picked out or frankly a full design picked out.
Sure.
And
Well,
you've
and more.
You've
Oh, go ahead.
installed some of these similar
Yeah, so
facilities. Just out of curiosity, what do you pay for a kilowatt?
For a system on this scale without batteries, it's probably around $4 a watt. So certainly on the higher end of what you see in a commercial facility, but that's because you get the dual use of doing it over a parking lot where your land costs are, the land gets appropriately used. So.
I think Mike would love to have someone mention to you that our Solarize project has SunPower panels for $259 a watt. But that, of course, is not canopies. We're talking about usual roof or ground mounts for houses and businesses. But if you were ready for an order by March 31st, you're a business in town, you would get the discount.
That actually is extraordinarily compelling. Did you guys say you're working with Solar Wolf?
Yeah.
Okay. I might be calling those guys. I'm in the market for myself, but obviously I'm not in Yarmouth. I'm up in Dedham. But
That's a
yeah,
Yarmouth only price, by the way, through March.
But certainly, yeah, there's a lot of steel that goes into the canopies, and further, we design our canopies to make sure that our bucket trucks can get under them. So that is a consideration for us. And actually, it's I have yet to talk with our operations folks, but there's I presume there will be a benefit not having to clear parking spots and clear off those bucket trucks once something like this gets installed.
And how large is your entire campus there over on Willow Street?
I don't know, Ronit, if you can provide any context on the full full scale, but I think we actually own a significant amount of the forested property as well down here.
Just a quick look, it looks like you're proposing to use about 20% or so of the whole cleared area.
Yeah, I think
Andy, we also own this triangle in the back. I mean, I think it's a pretty significant, so it's the grassy area at the bottom. And I think we own some of the back as well. I don't know if it's the entire triangle, but I know this area to the bottom of the long blue rectangle. Do you follow what I'm saying? The wooded area or the treed area. And then I think there's some even behind the where we store our inventory and train. You can't see, but on the bottom right corner, that's a bunch of poles. That's the training area. The bottom, yeah, right there. That's for the linemen to climb the poles and train on the poles.
You should propose to residents of Route 6A who can't, for historical reasons, put solar on their roof to subscribe to a solar garden type of operation, and charge them premium to help the poor down on Route 28.
And Bob himself is a historic area resident, so that is a good faith offer.
I mean, everything's on the table, for discussion. So once we get to the community engagement pieces of it, yeah, we can throw out some ideas.
You have to think outrageously in situations like that. I hesitate to use thinking outside the box. It's too much of a cliche. You just have to think really outrageously at times.
Fair, no.
Yeah. Well, Andy, Ranit, this was a delight, and we really appreciate your answers to the questions. And obviously, the ones that you're going to look into a little more, we'd love to have you back and hear about that. Because, I mean, it sounds like it would be a very good project and a good match for Yarmouth. And I realize the devil's always in the details, but I'm certainly very happy to hear all the details that you have so far.
Great. Really do appreciate you guys allowing us to jump on your agenda. I know it was somewhat last minute, so thank you for that. I think also looking forward, we are looking at other projects like this at our emergency operations centers, but we're also starting to think through if there are microgrid opportunities that we can develop using this legislation. So I know that's been a thing that Yarmouth has been thinking about with respect to some of your critical facilities. So when the time is right, I definitely love to have a discussion with you all about the potential opportunity there as well.
Oh, that would be great.
Excellent.
Well, listen, thank you both for coming. We are delighted that we were able to do this virtually so that you didn't have to come down here, especially after the weekend you both have had. But this was really very helpful to get a sense of the two of you and what you're trying to do with this.
Excellent. Well, thank you all. Appreciate it. We'll be in touch.
Okay. Thank you very much. Goodbye for now, but not goodbye.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Joyce. Thanks, everyone. Bye, Sandy.
Thanks.
Bye,
Renee.
thank you.
See you in the next one.
You bet. It's gonna be this weekend, I think.
Oh, hush, don't say it. Don't say it. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
All of us need to get our boats and kayaks in place. That's what we're really gonna need.
We should live on houseboats. That would solve so many problems.
You mean
Something to
there's-
think about.
There's going to be enough to rain all the snow away?
It depends on how this goes. But it's gonna cause some major flooding. If you have drains outside your house, get them open.
Wow. Okay.
We live in a sand pit, so we don't have any flooding at all. It just soaks straight into the ground.
Yeah, it's frozen though, honey.
Yeah, but he has historic sand. It has special properties. Okay. Well, that was great. I found that very informative. Our next agenda item is wastewater funding and the 450 Workshop Road Solar Project with Ed Centeo, the town finance director. Ed, are you here? I'm having this weird thing that with the gallery, I don't seem to be able to see everybody this time.
No,
So
he's not there.
Not there yet? Okay.
Yes, I do not see him.
Okay. Well, we had him scheduled. I wasn't sure how long they were going to go, so I only allowed half an hour for them. So he's probably about to check in. We've done most of our agenda items. There's just another one to mention that's scheduled for 5:55, which is the reorganization for 2022 and planning for the future. We really need more energy committee members, but especially we need another engineer member. Mike, is there any hope that you might be able to glean an engineer member from the Tufts Alumni Club?
The only one, well, The only one I know that lives in Yarmouth he's a Florida resident now, so he spends 6 months and a day in Florida,
Ah,
the rest of the time up here, so that wouldn't work.
okay. Well, because we don't want to have you having to function as the only engineer and getting bothered with all the electric questions. I mean, we have usually had 2 engineers and that has always seemed to work. So
It's
anyway,
only one, they can't criticize me.
that's true. It's true. That way you're irreplaceable. And yeah, we have to take your opinions always seriously. And, with our technical background, we're going on faith. So some of the question about that is recruitment. We said last spring when we were looking at this that we were going to need another engineer. We also wanted tech skills. We also wanted somebody with social media background. And so we have a couple appointments that we can make. So maybe if we could be, again, opening our eyes and looking about for people who might be possibles for those openings. I sent Pam in the front office an email a couple weeks ago asking her for a list of the people who had mentioned Energy Committee in any point on their applications. Apparently there haven't been many applications since the last time I looked. And the last time I looked, there were 2 people who listed every committee in town. And then one person who listed Energy Committee among 6 or 7 committees and identified himself as executive for his work experience. I just had the feeling that wouldn't work, but it turned out though that he was also only a part-time resident because he lives up in the Boston suburbs and only uses his house in the summer. So it seemed not even worth thinking about him to interview. On the other hand, I see a very intelligent looking canine who may be willing to step up for membership here. Bodie, you want to join Energy Committee? Woof. A definite silence there, but we might have more time to persuade him another day.
Fiona trained him well.
Yes. to resist volunteer work. Yes. The other thing with organization that we have that we can do today, or if Ed takes the rest of our time, we can do next month, is reorganize with officer elections. Now, to give you an idea, our current officers, we only have 2. That's me in the chair and Marilyn Holly as our secretary. And it seems as if at least 2 of our 3 members who are up for renewal are definitely going to renew. That would be Mike and Sandy. And I'm really hoping that Marilyn renews because we have never had such good minutes until she took over. But I'm trying not to make eye contact with her and make her feel guilty if her plans go otherwise. But you have done such a good job. I mean, you look up every acronym that someone carelessly drops. You make sure you get full names for people in the titles, and you get in touch about state and compact initiatives, to place them in context whenever anybody mentions them. So that's just my personal plea that it would be hard to get along without Marilyn. So I think I would like to see this role of secretary stay exactly where it is, but the chair is open, the vice chair is open, and I suggest that we think of nominating people for those.
I nominate Joyce Flynn for chairperson.
A second.
All in favor?
Wait a second,
Aye.
there might be other nominations. Huh. Well, remember, you can't nominate Steve anymore because he's in a better energy committee.
Yeah.
So you still, even if you think of me for chair, and I'm willing to do any office, but I'm also willing to do no office. We still will have the vice chair thing that we have to fill.
I would like to nominate Mike Duffy to be the vice chair, since he is the author of our 5-year plan.
Second,
What was it that Lyndon Johnson once said?
No, that was Albert. That was Albert.
No, well, I accept.
No, that was Alvin Barkley, I think.
well, are there other candidates for either of those offices? I mean, one can self-nominate if one is interested.
You recognize that I am absent a lot and will continue probably to be, God willing.
Well, we actually have a plan for that, Mike. We were thinking of joining you in Maui for however long you're there every winter.
Okay.
We'll still be accessible to the Yarmouth public because we'll do Zooms for them, but we'll be there in person.
Okay. Well, I suppose since my Solarize duties will be winding down here,
Yeah.
I suppose I can take on that.
Yeah,
See how it
good,
works
good.
for a year. For a year.
For a year. Yep. Okay, well, are there any other nominations for the position of chair? Okay, well, I accept for this next year, but at some point, just think how much shorter your meetings could be if I wasn't so chatty. I mean, just think about that. It might be in your interest.
We gladly accept the consequences of that.
Okay, now, my feelings about secretary position, and the chair cannot make a motion. But does anyone else have an opinion on that?
I nominate Marilyn for secretary position.
I second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We have to at least ask for other nominations. Come on, I mean, all our elections always feel fixed. It did seem unanimous, though, Marilyn. Anybody else interested in volunteering for the blood, sweat, and tears?
I would certainly step aside for anybody who had the desire to have the position. But if not, I will commit to doing it again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you. I mean, this is not just, for us, this is for history. And it's important that people be able to understand something about what happens at these meetings. Okay, is Ed here yet? I
No.
can't understand why I can't see everybody.
No, if you hit the
Gallery?
participants, if you hit the participants, you'll see who's on the meeting too.
Oh, okay. I was looking at gallery, maybe participants. Oh, yeah, just us.
Well, while we're waiting, I'll ask Barry. I know Barry sent out an email kind of posturing for an event, on-site event, which he might be willing to even attend.
Whoa, Barry.
Are things winding down in Yarmouth with COVID, that things are looking better for the near term?
Well, I mean, they are very gradually, like in the rest of the Northeast. I watch the numbers and the projections pretty regularly, and they are still worse than they ever were before Omicron, like much worse than during Delta, much worse than during last winter's peak. So we haven't actually got there yet, but we're trending, very sharply. Like, Barnstable County's numbers are on a straight line down. Whether they will get there by the end of the month looks promising, but I don't think, obviously, anybody really knows.
As you can tell from my voice, I am finishing, the beginning of the end of a cold. And I did a rapid test yesterday and it tested negative. So
Oh, we're glad to hear that.
Very glad.
Chicken soup.
yeah.
Is that what I taste in my mouth? Like somebody sprayed something.
Okay, well, Barry, do you want to mention anything about this, this possible event that might involve your attendance that Mike has mentioned?
Barry's muted.
Barry?
No,
Oh, we're asking about this event that you might
no,
attend.
no, I heard. No, I
Oh,
didn't.
okay.
I mean, it's, you know, I haven't been at the others, so I don't think I've got any basis on which to, you know, offer advice.
What's
The other,
what's the main objective of tomorrow's meeting with CEC, Joyce?
remember that we are being recorded and this is an official meeting.
Okay.
I would say that we're, going to go after one of our vendors for not communicating with customers. There are perfectly good reasons why installations are behind. But again, the last 2 Friday cheery updates to everyone to let them know Solar Wolf still exists did not happen. So in your absence, Mike, I have to be both cheerleader and bad cop. It's a strain.
I know. I sent you an email on that, right?
So anyway, Lisa Dobbs has been notified. Everybody is kind of aware that there have been problems. And we'll be having like a little meeting of our own before that. Sandy has set it up for a 9 o'clock iPad agenda meeting tomorrow for about 20 minutes before we have our 10 o'clock with CEC. And so I've got the invitation from Sandy to send out to those of you who are, I guess it's actually everybody I'm facing right now, except for Bodie, who are also on the Solarize volunteer team, just so you'll know a little bit about some of the correspondence that has happened. Wayne continues to be a delight. He's been working this week out in Nantucket in spite of the snow, in spite of the weather. So he probably will check in from his car as usual. But a lot of the concentration is going to be on the solar half of the program and trying to just get communications on board. We are, Mike, I can't remember, since I wasn't able to see everybody, if you were on for this part, but our next Energy Committee meeting is going to be a virtual Meet the Installer that's going to have Wayne and some things on the technology of heat pumps and some photos, but also somebody from the Compact talking about the most recent heat pump benefits, because the rebates have gone up and are really favorable now. So we'll be able to do that for one of our vendors, and it remains to be seen whether we'll be able to do that for our other one.
Is that first Tuesday then?
Yep, first Tuesday. Yep, March 1st.
We need to get some more contracts for Wayne. It's only got 3, right? But I don't understand because Sandy, he's got a couple with you that still don't get counted, right?
Well, he just lost a couple because of procurement processes, which was very sad for me.
Yeah, public meeting. Yeah.
Yes. And the other units that he had, he could not do the way that they were in the offices. One was like on a ceiling and another one was no way that we could put it with the load on the walls at Emmy Small.
And he's just a little bit too early for the new building and any help there, huh?
Yes. That supposedly is going to be central air.
Well, I guess that does make sense. Yeah. Okay, Ed, are you with us?
Not yet.
Okay, well, since he's not, I suggest that we close the meeting and maybe hear from him with PowerPoints or communication in the future, or at a future meeting. I know he's very busy in finance season, so I would guess that he probably right now has to be at Board of Selectmen. And if we all close the meeting very rapidly, we'll still catch public comment, which has been a hoot lately. Yes? Okay.
Okay.
Are we entertaining a motion?
Yes, I move that we adjourn.
Is there
I'll
a
second.
second?
I'll second. Sandy.
Debate? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and the chair says aye as well. Thank you, everybody, for being so tolerant of a meeting that had so many different pieces, and look forward to seeing some of you at 9 tomorrow and some of you not till next month, but the pandemic does seem to be waning. So perhaps we'll see more of each other in the future. Have a
Thank you.
great night.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Aloha.